Let's come here. Who else would it be? This is the Bitcoin brief for May 12th. I couldn't think of the time. I hope you've had a good weekend. It was a holiday weekend. And so the markets were pretty responsive overall, but we're going to get into just the big three: Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. This is going to be mainly daily time frames, 4 hour time frames as well. If you're looking for a higher time frame, like 1 week and 2 week, that's what observations with O2 is for. I do that pretty much right after this. So if you want something high time frame, you can go there. That's going to be a YouTube exclusive, mainly because X is really limiting on that sometimes. So if you want to go there, go ahead and go to my YouTube and find it, and I'll try to link it in X, of course. And so I have that. I also have a macroeconomics video. A lot of people are suggesting to have a macro outlook, and I honestly, I'm doing the video that's coming up here pretty soon, next 24 hours. You guys know I'm not a macro guy, so but we'll see. The reason I'm going to do it though is I'm making my attempt to kind of show you why macro's not all that cracked up to be, and try to explain my reasoning why. I tend to be a pure chartist. I don't know if that's the way you're supposed to do it, but that's the way that I've done it, and I've been successful doing it, and that's what you should be doing. You should be doing whatever works for you, and so don't let me tell you wrong. If something works for you, that's different than what I say, then hey, that's completely fine. The end goal is for you to be profitable on your own accord. So, anyway, let's get started. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. Let's go on the daily. What I got currently on the chart here is my personal positions here. Both of these are active. It's about 8R total. One's about 27%. One's about 31%. Mainly just because of the way I bought them here. And so got pretty fortunate here with this one. Kind of got in this little cluster. The other one here was actually a retest of the trend. Pretty easy, honestly. Like a lot of the things I do, and a lot of you guys in premium and my Apex group, is a lot of them are just trend breaks, EMAs, ARN, things like that. Very simple things. I don't make this complicated. Okay, I tried to make these simple, and that for some reason people have a problem with simple. Like people feel smarter to come up with something more complicated, and that just takes up time, takes up resources, takes up money, and just you don't end up that much more profitable. Okay, and there's a lot of statistics to prove that, like holding on to the S&P 500, for example, things like that. If you try to time the markets too much with too many things, your risk to return gradually reduces. And so anyway, my point is those are my two entries. This red line right here was the pre-parabolic trend line, is what I tend to call it. Is when you get like an aggressive push, like a consolidation, not a price action consolidation, but a trend-based consolidation. And so when you got the push up, that was a good sign that we would go higher. We don't have a divergence here currently. We could end up coming back here. I'm going to actually switch over to the secondary chart. Gives me more of a presentation here to work with. So on the daily here, your big level is really, so these two double tops here, I'm going to mark this out like so because of the resting point here. And this is basically like a swing high order block. And so I'm going to move it over, pretty much reject it against this. Not quite a big rejection, but more of just a tap against it. And so nothing, we're kind of in no man's land here. There's not much to work with. From price action standpoint, your next level here is about 98.2. And so this is going to be a working level. This is going to be really complicated. And when you have a complex order structure like that, I just tend to, put it here in the middle. And then the mid tends to be very close to, you have a retest here at the lows, retest here at the mids somewhat. And it's close enough in this sense. Not everything needs to be perfect, to be honest with you. A lot of people want to try to be a perfectionist about this. You understand, like, sometimes this is like horseshoes. Close enough does count. Okay, so... And so anyway, with my ARN band, you have the trend pushing against it. You had a bounce on the trend, and that's looking pretty good. Now, I say all this to say, as far as price action goes, your level is going to be anywhere between this 104.800 and really this trend band here on ARN, which is 98.9. So very close to, excuse me, my throat was completely fine until I started recording. Here's your level that you want to work with. So, and I'll just erase all these because you got your top as the rejection, and then the bottom here is the trend. So this is all bullish. It can go as low as 99,000 and still be completely bullish. Nothing changes, right? And so this is going to trip people up. Okay, so first of all, I'm completely fine with this because that's what the chart says. Whatever the chart says, that's what I need to kind of follow in that sense. But for some people, and I'll explain this much more in observations with Otsu because I tend to save my rants for those videos. But there's people that never bought down, never bought 75, never bought 80, didn't buy 90, started to think about buying 99, 95, and then they finally bought it at 99 or 100, or after they hit 100, right? And so that's very frustrating because if you bought, let's say you bought at 100, like there's a chance that you could be underwater here in a few days if this comes back down. Now, the problem is that those people that buy, let's just say they buy at 101,000 or 100,000, whatever, right there, then they get a dip to 99. That psychological mindset, like, oh, I bought at 6 digits and now it's at 5 digits, and that's going to trip people up. They're going to try to sell, and it's actually going to come back up. Okay, and so that's the problem that we're in right now. Is that now we're in a stage where a lot of people are saying, hey, Bitcoin's back up above 6 figures. This looks pretty good now to buy. And it's the silliest thing. It's such a paradox because nobody wanted to buy it at 75,000, 76,000, 78,000. Okay, if you have a 7 in front of it, nobody wanted it. I bet you absolutely wanted it 5 years ago. You know, like my first Bitcoin I bought in the $3,000 and $4,000 range. You know, in this recent cycle, I bought it as low as, you know, in the 16s. And so it doesn't matter what the price point is. You got to understand like where you're at in the markets. There was plenty of evidence to say that this was going to bounce. I won't get into it. I have other videos for that, especially the observations, the Otsu videos. And I keep mentioning that video for a reason because they tend to be like upwards to an hour long. And I really, really get the content out. I really rant about things. I know they're a snooze fest sometimes, but I try to be. The whole point is I'm comprehensive about them, so I can be less comprehensive in other videos. Just tell you the quick fix and then move on, right? So kind of gets it out of my system, I guess. So with this here, the idea is a lot of people are going to think that we're going to come back down, and oh, it's a bull trap. It's a local top. It's CPI this or tariff this, and it's all going to be pointless unless we lose this level. Okay, so those are the two levels you really need to be concerned about. Is one, if we lose this 99.8 on the daily close. I really want to emphasize, especially if you're new, because I got a lot of new followers lately. I focus on daily closes or candle closes particularly. I almost always, 95 to 99% of the time, I focus on closing candles. Okay, I enter my trades at market on candle closes. Okay, I sell my trades at market at candle closes. Okay, stop losses pretty much the same. It's a little more dynamic than that for stop losses, but you see what I'm saying? That's very unorthodox for a lot of people, and I consider that very traditional. I don't know. I'm kind of homebred with this, so I'm not an expert necessarily how that's supposed to go. It has worked for me. And I've been doing this for, it'll be 9 years at the end of this year. It'll be 9 years. So, and it's worked for me. So anyway, I quit my job 4 years ago to do something like this. So my point is the two levels here are the 99,000 and 99,900, I should say. So basically, if we close under 100,000, your next level here is if this level 98.2 does not hold. Preferably at the lower end of this is about 95.6. And so that's the thing. There's a lot of wiggle room here. And I can tell you right now, the same people, and I don't want to pick on nobody, but if we go down 8% to get to that level, people are going to say this is done, blah, 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 blah. But this is a very key retest area. And that's what I really need you to look at is that if this comes back down, this is a buy the dip scenario. And this is just my personal perspective, is that we have 3 attempts now at the top. Okay, this is our third big attempt going to $100,000. It doesn't, I know it sounds silly to say this, like it doesn't make sense that this would just reject and continue going down to 60s, Okay, it certainly could, but nowhere in my history necessarily, you know, does that really happen. Okay, I mean, you could take this here for example, actually, and you do have some sort of situation here where you have the push up, the big gap, and then a double top, so you have two attempts. Like if we get two attempts and then we reject, okay, I'll understand that. But right now, I wouldn't be too scared. We're like we're less than like one. Well, I'll just give it like one, even generous, like 1.5% off the recent highs. People call them local top. This is still it's silly. There's no indication, and that's where we're going to go to the other ones. Aaron here, full bull right here. It's been bullish since this lower conviction cross here at about April 16th. RSI has been just fine. It's still below 80. 80% is my marker to kind of cash out or just to scale out, I should say. It's doing just fine. There's nothing really here to be concerned about. Now we do have a divergence here on the 4-hour, and so that's one reason I wanted to share those levels, because I do think that we can get them. And so with this, what you want to see for this rejection is if we go below this level here at 102.5. If we close below 102.5, we're going to 98 out. We're going to 99. Okay, and so if I wanted to make a short, I'm definitely absolutely not interested in this. But if I wanted to make a short, it would look like this. And it's only like a 1.5. So it's very low, right? Sorry if I'm talking a little slower today. I'm kind of taking my time today. You could maximize this here, and get you like a 100x leverage for 3R. That's possible. I don't think that's a terrible trade. That's just not for me. I'm not interested in shorting. I'm not interested in shorts when the markets are up so much. Mainly because I'm usually a one-directional trader. Like I do trade bi-directionally, but I only focus on one. So like if the high time frame is bullish, I trade longs. If the high time frame is bearish, I trade shorts, or do shorts, whatever. So this is presentable. I honestly think this is valid, but just keep in mind, like, this is not how I would play it. I would not short this. What I would do instead is try to long this and set an alert here, things like that, right? So I feel like that's better because you're preparing for the longer time frame. The longer time frame here is bullish. In fact, it just flipped bullish, high bullish cross on 68%. We'll cover that in observations with Otsu, and that tends to rally. The last time it did that, it went up pretty significantly, right? And so even at the close here to the top, went up about 52%. Okay, and so if you're looking at that same 52%, you're looking at like 159,000. See what I'm saying? So that doesn't mean it's going to go up that high, but that's the scale that you're working with. I do think one of the people's problems nowadays is just, you don't want to think too small. Like, I know it sounds reasonable. Believe me, it sounds completely reasonable to say we just made a 33% move, okay, and we have no bearish candles on the way up. We must be going down. That is reasonable. That is logical, but that doesn't mean it's right. Okay? That does not mean it's right. Okay, so you got to kind of work with that. Now, again, my weekly ideas will be in the other video. So, but I'm just looking at mainly dailies and 4-hour. The 4-hour is kind of cutting out here. I still think that this is ready to go up unless it breaks. You need to look at this as two levels. Here's your entire level, right? So you got to play either side. You got to wait for a break of either side. If this is 104, then you could just do like break of that, long to, whatever, right? 150,000, whatever you want. So like that would be, to me, this is much better. Like, you cannot get a 5R trade right here on shorts unless you're doing high leverage. Okay, and this is high leverage too. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is, like, your maximized potential right now is on longs, but this here is the big area that I'm focusing on the most. So that's Bitcoin. I spend a lot of time on, and I try to. I want to spend more time on Bitcoin. Now Ethereum is up next. This is a trade that we looked at last week. I've been pretty vocal about Ethereum and Solana as well. About halfway into this, it is starting to reject here. Here is your swing high from the previous marker here at about March 2nd. It did deviate into this. If you wanted to close this, I think you certainly could. Now this is going to be a little bit interesting because this could technically retest back to 2122 and be just fine. So and this really here is going to be your key area, like 2236, down to about 2150. So just keep that in mind. I don't like this deviation necessarily. This is not a big deal either, because this is just one little point. This is not a whole level, right? This is just like one little bitty point. And so the big level on the weekly here is about 26.25, and that's just below it. So that's not a deviation per se. I also think the RSI is a little high. So if you wanted to take some profits here, I think that's fine. But still looking pretty good. I think we're probably going to get the retest to the downside. So we'll see how that goes. The thing is like, it's going to depend a lot on the Bitcoin dominance. That's also an observations with Otsu thing. Observations with Otsu is going to be a big video this week. So, and that will determine, the Bitcoin dominance chart will determine how strong alts will be. So Ethereum does need to hold. Again, it can go down to 2122, which is like as low as like 15% here and still be bullish. That counts as a bullish retest. And that I really want to emphasize, that's the danger right now. Coins could easily go down 10-15% across the board and still be perfectly bullish. And people are going to misinterpret this as bearish. So my thought process for my personal trading is that's stupid. That's silly. I don't want to say it's stupid, so I apologize. It's just, it doesn't make sense to me, because we've already broke through ranges that should get retested anyway. And so I'm looking for buy the dip scenarios. I'm not looking for, I did not spend the last 6 months in a somewhat, a fox bear market to just fade the first breakout. That's usually not how these things work. So there are exceptions, of course. Now Solana here is another one. This is a trade that we looked at before. 4.6R, 4.1R here. This is kind of tagged on the resistance. This is very textbook versus the Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin is very trend based right now. A little bit of price action, but mainly trend. Ethereum is just kind of doing whatever it wants to do. It's just, it knows it sucks, so it's just doing whatever it can. Solana here is very textbook, and so I like this. So what you need to know here is it's rejection at this zone, and if you are interested in this, you need to wait for a break above the 180. Put a stop loss underneath it. Tag the same 260, which I think is the all-time high, or the weekly high, whatever here. I don't know if it's all-time high. Pretty close. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So the high from here, and so that's why I have it marked. So that's a 4.97. That's actually bigger than both of the other two. So it does sometimes pay to wait. So that's the reclaim that I'm looking at. You do have a very wide bearish consolidation here, very wide gap here, almost like 70 and about 80% or so. So just be mindful of that. Our size hovering a little to the top side, but it's still healthy. So, but that's pretty much it for Solana. It does have a divergence here, so just keep that in mind. Same scenario works out. You're gonna look at this as like a range, and really you take the wicks as well, which is pretty much the range of the bigger high time frame. So I would just wait for a breakout of this 180 marker to 167. So anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it. A little bit longer. I'm a little bit slower pace today, just kind of taking a different tempo. But let me know what you think. Happy to discuss things more. Again, observations with Oats is coming up next. The macro video is also coming up sometime. I did say it would come up here within an hour, but it's gonna be a long video, so I think I might delay that. So I do apologize. Might wait till maybe Monday afternoon. And then for those of you that are in Apex, my premium membership, you have a video coming up right after this. So I'll see you next time. Let's have a good week.